Welcome to the Strong, Single and Human podcast. A real look at single parenting, how to navigate the ups and downs of life with kids on your own while keeping sane. We cover all manner of subjects from domestic violence, dealing with childhood trauma, through to fussy eaters and how to help your kids become resilient. I'm your host, Claire Martin. Welcome. This week's guest has a coaching business, is a communication facilitator and leadership mentor. Leaving school with no qualifications, a result of severe dyslexia and bullying, he very quickly excelled his way in adult life and a career by cultivating the art of listening, watching and reading human behaviour to figure out what makes people tick. Being one of the first leading drag artists and only male cosmetic salesperson in Northern Ireland during the times before the ceasefire was quite a challenge, yet this didn't stop him breaking down barriers and bringing communities of people together. Marcus Hunter Neill knows how to identify a weakness or quirky characteristic and turn it into a strength. And his knowledge helps others to help inspire and drive themselves forward in their own careers. If anyone knows how to conquer a blockage of self-belief or esteem, it's Marcus. As well as running a successful business, Marcus has worked with the BBC, Channel 4, ITV, UTV, This Morning, and many others, while continuing his successful drag career globally. He also has his own production company and is currently working on his first novel, again, another challenge with dyslexia. So welcome to the Strong, Single and Human podcast. Hi, welcome Marcus Hunter Neill, who is Lady P from Dating is Such a Drag podcast. Welcome.
Good morning, my little cherub. How are you?
Hello, I'm great. I'm fab. I can't wait to delve in to who you are and
goodness.
The subject we want to talk about.
I have to ask, how are things down under?
Things are lovely down under. We're warming up down under.
Because we're cooling down up here. I'm in sunny Belfast, Northern Ireland, where basically they made the Titanic, and I can see that from my window. I can see the shipyard where they built the Titanic.
I have only been to two places in Ireland. I've been to Cork, lovely, awesome Cork, and I've been to Belfast. I didn't do the standard normal stuff of going to Dublin and all of that stuff where everyone from the UK goes to. And I loved Belfast. I thought it was great. And I went and visited where the Titanic was built.
You might have driven past my house. So this is literally my favorite. I give this to everybody. So do you see this? For anyone that, for all of the listeners out there, I'm holding up a fridge magnet, and it's
awesome.
It's half of the Titanic sinking, and it's just the tail up, and it says "ship happens." Because in life, ship happens, and we just have to roll with it.
Well, it does. It does. So look, tell us a bit about you and who you are. And how you've got to doing this podcast and doing what you do now.
Yeah. So basically, my name is Marcus Hunter Neill, as you said. And for the last 23 years, I have been working as Lady Portia de Monte, the most beautiful face in Northern Ireland, never to be discovered. And I would be known as Northern Ireland's first lady of drag, because I would be very sort of Jackie O-esque, very front row fashion week in my getup.
Oh,
and I've always used drag is kind of used in the right way, a superpower, because it commands attention as soon as you walk in. Now, whenever I started 23 years ago, and maybe a bit, they there was no scene, there was one gay bar and nobody had their drag wasn't really a thing. There was a drag queen that kind of DJ'd, and there was another one that stood on the door, but there was no there was no performances, there was no entertainment. And in Dublin, we had seen these shows that were happening, and we approached the bar, and this is how different times were. The bar owner was like, men dressed as women, like, would that even be a thing? And we said, well, it seems to work down south, and they said, well, we'll give you a go on a Sunday because we've got like 9 people, so it's not like you can destroy a night. And their Sunday nights became busier than their Fridays and Saturdays. Then we started doing, karaoke during the week, pub quizzes during the week. I hosted and went round everybody. My job, get this, on a Friday, my first job was collecting people's email addresses, because emails are such a new thing.
Oh my God.
And it was like, do you have an email address? Because like we can send you messages to let you know if things are happening.
Wow.
And also, my early shows were on a cassette tape.
Oh my God.
Like winding up.
Yeah.
You see the DJs sometimes going, and they would put the pencil in and wind them up. And karaoke was on a videotape where you had to say somebody was picking I Am What I Am. It might say, video number like B4, so that would be video number 4, 43.5 seconds in. So you'd fast forward or rewind to 43.5, and then press play, and somebody would sing karaoke. So, oh
my God.
Then our show became really big and really popular, and we moved bars and venues, and it became like the second venue that we went to, it was a bar and they had a club attached to it. But basically, we jammed the place out that they had to legally put in 2 extra fire doors. So the owner was like, I can't get over this. So behind but once we got onto the stage, it was this tiny little 6 foot by like 4 foot stage. And it was in the middle of the room. Once we got on it, we couldn't leave it because people were shoulder to shoulder. So they eventually bought the building next door, behind the wall that we did, and knocked our show into that, and built this whole stage and theatre space, lights around it, and it was the most popular event in Northern Ireland at the time, because it was like people would be queued, it'd be one person in, one person out, because that's how busy it was. And then, like a lot of things, some egos just got a little bit big for them, and it just got to sort of thing where it's like, this just isn't really my vibe, anymore. Like, and one person was like, I'm going to work all of yous out of this show, and then it'll be my show. And that person did get their wish, and their solo show didn't last, because it was, when you've got the right mix and the right blend, then that's what the magic is. It's not based on one individual person. It's based on, the blend of people, and I always worked in cosmetics, or I always worked, and then I worked for a long time in cosmetics, and then I ran Look Good, Feel Better, which is a cosmetics cancer charity. So I always had in the back of my sort of toolkit, because everybody in life has a toolkit to success, which you don't realize what it is. One of mine is, if I need to do something or grab attention or do whatever, I can do it in drag. I can say, like, I'll jump into drag, and it'll either grab, the press. So for example, whenever we were doing the marriage equality, we were sort of like, championing for marriage equality. When they were doing the press call, I used to say to the guys, even though it was 11 o'clock in the morning and it takes me 3.5 hours to get ready, I was like, I'll get into drag, because that way they'll be more likely to put photographs of me in drag into the papers, rather than just a bunch of not ordinary looking people, but drag just adds that, elevates everything. And it's the same whenever I would be doing talks, or at the rally and stuff like that. There, people always stopped and listened to what I had to say, because here is this spectacle on a stage. And whenever I started doing drag, people had never really experienced, because we were coming out of the Troubles in Northern Ireland.
Yeah, explain the Troubles, because we're talking to people globally. Now, I know what they are, because I came from the UK, so I understand all of that. Yeah. But And some people here are Irish,
Yeah,
have come from Ireland and
yeah.
understand, but many people aren't.
So for
So,
the long and short of it, to sort of summarize, there was a lot of civil unrest around religion and land, and for basically 35 years, Belfast was shooting itself and blowing itself apart. And you had different sectors of the community. So you would have had like Protestants and Catholics, and everybody just lived in their community. They didn't come in; they only came into the city centre to work, and then it went home, and the city centre was a ghost town after 6 o'clock, apart from gays and punks, because they couldn't be themselves in their own area because everything was very conservative. So the peace process happened and people started to venture out. So I, for a lot of people, was their first representation of what gay was, because maybe they hadn't met gay people. It wasn't back then, a thing like, now, like, oh my God, they're gay. That's great. So people hadn't really experienced what sort of gay was, because they'd only seen what it was on television, and it was always campy, or if they did know somebody, it was like it was a secret. So this is an example. Whenever I started my career, I started off working in special needs, and the principal of the school called me in on my last in the summer of my penultimate year. She couldn't sing my praises enough, saying how amazing I was, and I was doing like bus runs at the end of the school, and like looking after two brothers who were in the school, and she was going like, everyone loves you, the parents love you, we all love you. Basically, as soon as you're qualified, there will be a job for you here, please stay. In that summer, the secretary's daughter in law was one of the people working on the summer scheme. Her husband, who's a secretary's son, on our sort of staff night out at the end of the summer scheme, just walked over to me and here he goes, "Are you gay or what?" And at the time I had a boyfriend, and I've always been very secure in my own skin, because I had the life beaten out of me for 5 years for just literally being myself. And
wow.
so I was like, fuck you, you know, you're not literally not going to intimidate me in any way, shape, or form. So I very simply
No.
said yes, and what of it? So it completely put him on the back foot, because he was expecting me to sort of be like, no, for him to go, I are.
No.
I was like, yeah, and so that got back to the principal, and she wouldn't let me back into the school, because there was this mantra around gay is if you're gay, you must be a paedophile. So then why would a gay person want to work with vulnerable children? So there must be. So she wouldn't let me back in the school. So that was all going on, and that was in the zeitgeist, and
Wow.
we had these big adverts around AIDS, and so there was a real stigma around.
Well, I was going to
Yeah,
say
we had like,
that sort of era, like 90s and beginning of 2000, was AIDS. Was like Freddie Mercury died of AIDS and all of this stuff. We had various different people,
and you had
who were,
adverts running in the early 90s, and it was like big tombstones and like people putting AIDS, like putting the word AIDS as a death sentence. And so there was this thing around, if you were gay, you were somewhat dirty or a paedophile, or you were going to give everybody AIDS. And so when we started doing shows, then I went out and started doing like solo work in straight bars, which had never been done. And I was the first. I was like the entry drug for people to what gay was. But because my package, so I knew that drag was a superpower if used well. So I went in and I was everybody's friend, and people were going, "My God, like here's a gay person." I didn't realize gay people were so nice. I didn't realize gay people were so fun. Portia's lovely. So you were opening minds without them even realizing what you were doing. And the wonderful thing about that is, over the last lot of years, the amount of people that have come up to me and said, I was able to come out because my mum and dad had met you first, or they, my mum and dad had knew you and seen you do stuff, and they would come home, and then it was okay for me to say that I was gay. So thereby making a statement without even saying a word, by just being yourself. You don't know the impact that you have on people's lives when you're living your life. So always put your best foot forward, because you don't know who's watching from anywhere else. And then whenever I was working in cosmetics, I very quickly, all the teams that I was working with were doing phenomenally. Like they literally couldn't understand like why we were so productive. And I worked for Benefit Cosmetics, and there used to be this saying where there was the Benefit way or the Marcus way. We don't know what it is that Marcus does, but if you can do the Marcus way, that's fine. And then I wasn't 100% sure what it was, but now, because I work in leadership and personal development, I know exactly what it was that I was doing. And I was giving the girls respect. I was praising them for everything that they did, and I was rewarding them for doing the work. So they felt validated for everything. It wasn't like I was going, right, I need you to make your target, or you're in trouble. I was like, right, we're all in this together. We're a team. Where are we at target wise? And everything would be broken down. I always stuck 10% on the top of the weekly target, so that no matter what we were aiming for, usually by Wednesday or Thursday, we had the week's target made. So everything else was a bonus. Every time the girls did it, I signed out a product, and I was like, listen, that was brilliant. Or the girls did, some makeup on somebody, and I'd walk over and I'd really praise the girls in front of the client, and, and everybody felt really included. So when you are working in any form of a team and you've got any form of leadership, always make sure that your team are seen and heard and feel validated and appreciated. Because I was working for a big global company, and we were doing a workshop with their top leaders in, I think it was over in America, in Portland, Oregon. Yeah, that is America. And the guy, we had flown some of them in from all around the world, and this guy was from Germany, and he had this wonderful realization that he doesn't need praise or thanks or acknowledgement. He just gets on with the job, which is a very German thing to do. It's very like, this is my job, and whereas listening to everybody collectively, because everybody was from all around the world and bringing their different stories and sharing their different things. So then through the workshops, and this was a year-long course that they were on, that we were running, and the next time we were all together, his big takeaway was, I didn't need recognition. I don't need, to be told that I am greater, but I now understand other people do. So there was such a change in his management and his style whenever he started to acknowledge his team, because they were doing the work and he was just going, well, it's basically your job. What of it? So it's that my secret sauce was, I was so grateful that the girls were doing such a great job. It kept everybody off my back. Here's a couple of testers. They were starting to build up their kit for makeup artists. These are free testers that come in. They don't come off my top line budget. There's no, it's just like crack on, do whatever. And they work their socks off, and it was a really kind environment that we worked in, because say one of the girls had a really bad period, life happens. Sometimes a girl needs to go into like a room and cuddle herself for like half an hour, or take a bit of a longer lunch, or go. I genuinely didn't give two shits what the girls did or their times were, as long as all the targets were hit. So in that wiggle room, if you need to go to a doctor's appointment, or your mum isn't well, or your child is sick, that's fine, because you're a human being first, and we can make everything else work. Whereas other people work on, well, this is your job. I don't care that your son's not sick. Get your mummy to look after him. And that's the difference in how people show up, not just for you, but for companies and their teams, whenever they feel that their contribution is valid, So then I took that, and I've always worked in like as a coach, kind of helping people with their careers and in their lives. And then whenever, and drag always being such a powerful tool, and I always made sure that people saw the contribution that I was doing. So 10 years working for a cosmetics cancer charity, and to raise its profile, I would do these real women fashion shows, and I hosted it in drag. So again, you've got this giant captive audience. Wow. There was no professional models. They were all real women from every shape and size and age.
Which is what we need.
Yep. so that the women who were in the audience could identify themselves on the catwalk. So there was women from their 60s down to 16. There was a size 6 up to a size 24. There was a 5'8" to, or maybe 6'2" down to like a 5 foot nothing. So all the different proportions were there on stage, and because you're showing people you matter. You don't need to be 6'4" to wear, because one of the things that my mum is heavier and short, and she always says anything looks good on somebody tall and thin, which is true. You could put them in a paper bag and belt it, and a necklace, and it would still look lovely. So that was, you're always giving people, allowing them to see themselves wherever you go. So again, these are all things adding into my toolkit and who I am and what I'm doing, and drag when it needs to be pulled out can be pulled out to do whatever. And then I was asked to come and work with a company, and that's where the girl got me into, actually doing what I do. But she's like, you're, what you do, you can't teach people. And I was like, well, at this stage, I was like, I don't really know what it is I do. I just do it. She goes, that's your secret sauce, because you're so infectious that you actually make people strive to do better. So then I started training then in coaching and development and health, and then working with this global company. And we'd fly all around the world and work with big international companies. And I'm literally just back from, I did a back-to-back where I went London with an event to Toronto with event, like within the space of 10 days, same event brought over, back for 3 days to Belfast, and then back to London for a completely different event. So then...
So COVID was a rest for you then?
Well, COVID was amazing for me, I have to say, because all of my life, everything I've been doing for other people. So I'm designing this program for somebody else. So it allowed me to actually 100% hone my skills, sit down and figure out what is it that I want to do, where do I want to take myself. So I had stillness, I had the art of stillness.
Gave you time.
I set up a charity, and I did like a global helping hands charity, and I designed 3 new coaching programs. I became the Irish ambassador for Mind Valley, if you've ever heard of them. So
no, but that sounds awesome.
So Mind Valley is this amazing global leader or personal development program where every aspect of your life is covered. And they have the best speakers they have the best of the best speakers. So the likes of Lisa Nichols does like coaching programs. They do things around lucid dreaming. They do things about conscious uncoupling. They do things around leadership development. They do personal development. They do keep fit. They do food. So it's kind of all in this one amazing umbrella.
Wow, all encompassing.
It's such an awesome, and then the whole community comes together and does all these different big wonderful events. It's so incredible. So for me, I love people. I also love my own time. So because I'm very secure within my own skin and very comfortable being on my own and with my own thoughts, a year on my own in this apartment, like look at it, it's gorgeous. It was great. It was a gift.
It is. It's fantastic. People can't see it, but it is. It's like absolutely awesome.
I was like, this is the best gift for me because I'm on my own. And then I set up Zoom bingos. So I knew that for a lot of my shows that I do, because I still do weekly drag shows, that a lot of my customers were slightly older and it was their only night out. And then for some people who were maybe on their own, who didn't have the same mindset as me, and we're social animals. We're designed to be social animals. So we like to run in packs. So I set up weekly bingos, Zoom bingos in drag, and I would do like cabaret and get people all and all on Zoom. And on Zoom you can like spotlight somebody.
All in your apartment.
So I beamed all around the world. I did Friday night drinks. So it was the same idea, because I also realized that social interaction had gone, and the water cooler moments and people just going, having a couple of drinks and a bit of a debrief, that had all gone. So I set up Friday night drinks bingo, where different companies could patch in, and I would just take the hand out of everybody and we played bingo. Bingo was so secondary. It was the hook, but it was more a drinking game, and and then we'd be making fun with people and spotlighting different people and making fun of their background and being like you've got this book cabinet. I'd be like, so those bookshelves, are they there just to make you look intelligent, or have you read all those books? Because then there's some people that go, I've never read any of them.
They're all fake.
Yeah.
They're all fake.
You know what I mean?
Fake.
So then I else, like, somebody would be in their bedroom and I'd be like, would you not think of making your bed before you came on the Zoom? Like, because people can see it. So it was just a lovely light relief. And then on a Saturday, I did like Zoom bingo for the scene, like where people could patch in. And then I set up Christmas parties. So there was no Christmas parties happening. So I did Zoom bingo Christmas parties, which was the same idea. And it was giving people a bit of an interaction, and they still had something to look forward to with work because everything was so strange,
So with the drag stuff, right? So I know you started it like 20 odd years ago, but have you always wanted to do drag? Or was it just sort of like a means to making money? I mean, you were gay and you just thought, wow, that would be cool. So that would be a cool idea. How did you get into that?
I'm also very severely dyslexic, right? So I really struggle to read, spell, write, all that type of thing. So that's why, thankfully, I'm a good talker, as you can see.
Yeah.
And I was very lucky because I went to a school in my early years. It was a German school called Rudolf Steiner, and the Steiner education system is all about expanding children's minds before you cram in academia. So it was getting children open to color, art, design, thoughts. It's very much about thought leadership, like get children to think about the world and the environment that they're in and what their contribution is to the world that they're in versus 1 + 1 = 2.
We've got Steiners over here. We've got Steiners, and there's some other name that they're called as well. I can't think what the name is, but we've got sort of schools that don't have a curriculum.
And whenever it came to like fun time and dressing up, there was a bridesmaid's dress, and I always wanted to be a bridesmaid because in my head, I always thought bridesmaids had the best deal. They got to wear the pretty dress and they got to do whatever they wanted. The bride always, to me, looked like a work, because she was having to go around everybody and get photographs, whereas the bridesmaids were in these wonderful dresses and having a ball, and doing their own thing. So whenever I was younger, that's what I wanted to be. When people would say, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I'd be like, I want to be a bridesmaid. And because of the school that I went to and my mum and dad being very cool, I was never discouraged from anything, but it was kind of like, do you want to we should be like a bridesman? And I was like, no, I want to be the bridesmaid because they wear lovely clothes. And it was like, okay, well, all right.
But so your mum and dad never had any issues. Did you have to come out to your mum and dad? What happened there? Or did they just know? They went,
I have never really been in. God help my mum. I came out of her womb with a top hat and a cane. And
no, that's great.
Going like, where's my light? I'm ready for my close up. Wipe this gunk off me and get the camera out.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
So
ta-da!
They have always been very cool. I've always been who I have. So, for example, like kids party pieces at parties and at family functions and gatherings, and all the kids get up and do poems and like wee hymns and sing songs. Mum and Dad were having this party and in their house, and they always had the first Saturday after New Year's, all the family together, aunts and uncles and cousins and their aunts and uncles and my grandparents, and all the kids are doing like hymns. So because it was in our house, I slipped off to get into like a wee outfit, because I thought, well, I'm just going to elevate my performance, right? So I just came to the hall door, and my dad is kind of sitting by the door with his back to it, and I just opened the door ajar, and he's sitting by the crack, and I was like, Daddy, introduce me. So he didn't know. He just was like, didn't know what I was wearing. He just thought I had gone out to make an entrance, and then I burst in one of my sister's outfits. And they're all sitting going, what? I'm like 6 or 7, and they're like, what the fuck? There's like Christian Presbyterian family, and someone's just sung "What a Friend We Have
Oh
in
my
Jesus,"
God.
and I come out in my sister's outfit, her boots and the hair clip, and singing Betty Boo doing the do. And everyone's like, okay, right. So the next
Yay!
year I went to go, but nobody made me feel like there was no shame attached to it. It was just like, oh, well, that was great.
No.
Let's go and get you changed now and, rejoin the party. So nobody ever was like,
So no comments, nobody in the family like made like derogatory comments like, oh, boys don't dress as girls, or, anything like that. You were just like, that's awesome. Yeah. That's what you do. Well
and the
done.
Thing is, I'm
what a great voice.
Very aware of that. That's such a privilege, because with my years, and especially doing drag as long as I have, I've seen the ugly side of how families have completely like organ rejected family members, and they have been cut out and cast out. Whereas I know that I was very lucky to not ever be in that scenario. So that's why I've worked very hard with homeless, the suicide around homosexuality. Like, we had a very large male suicide rate over here, and especially around men that were from deprived areas that didn't feel that they had a voice or could talk or share their feelings or come out. So a lot of my work that I've done over the years is like just saying it's okay to be gay, basically, and trying to change hearts.
Yeah, we had it here in the 80s and 90s in Australia. It was massive. Like people being pushed off cliffs because they were gay, and like, being beaten up, and it was horrendous.
There's a brilliant TV show that I watched on Netflix, and I think it was called Deep Water or Dark Water, and it's a true story miniseries around Sydney, where basically like 20 years later they figured out and found out who all the perpetrators were.
Yeah, there were still deaths, mysterious deaths from some of the guys who they just don't know, like, who the murderers are. It's terrible. It's terrible. But like, Sydney wasn't the only place. It was happening in Melbourne, and I'm sure it was happening in Ireland and in the UK in various different places. It wasn't 80s, 90s was not a, hey, everyone's can be who they are. It was, like, really.
For example, the bar that I worked in, and this is what I'm saying about the troubles and, us blowing each other and shooting ourselves apart. So there was a gay policeman, and the gay policemen couldn't really come out because, it was so stigmatized as well, that the IRA knew that one of the guy, and that's who they targeted as well, was like prison officers and police officers, and so they literally walked into the gay bar and right up to this gay policeman, shot him, and turned and walked back out again.
But that's what happened in those days.
And that happened. Yeah.
Nuts, isn't it?
For like, it was like two strikes against him. One, he was gay. Two, he was a policeman.
Bloody hell.
Yeah. And just literally walked in and shot him in a public bar on a Saturday night.
But that's what happened. That was the 80s. God love him.
So that's the great thing, is like, changed times, which is wonderful. And then, because again, my toolkit was I can't read, write, or spell, but here's a way of making money that's actually fun. And I've always been into theatre, and I was doing performing arts and stuff at the time. So getting up on stage and lip syncing and stuff meant that I could still make the same amount of money on the fun side of the bar versus my friends who would start a shift at 6 and finish at 3 a.m., working behind the bar. And also it didn't matter that I couldn't read. I didn't need to spell anything. And then whenever it came to collecting people's email addresses and I can't spell, I just handed them the sheet. And then I had fake nails on. I said, "Oh, will you write down your own email, because I can't write with these nails." So I always had a little tool around everything, and then that's how it all worked. And then the show built into what it was, and I ventured off into makeup, and and then I've just kind of created this life for myself, and everything is kind of ebbed and flowed. And I'm a great believer in rolling with life and seeing the opportunities that are presented in front of you. And instead of talking yourself out of them, go, let's run with this and see where it takes us. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, or we're on one path thinking that we're going somewhere, and then a little splinter path comes, and it's even better. And because you just roll with life,
Yeah.
you haven't missed it.
Yeah, and I think you're right. You need to be true to yourself. You've got to be who you are, because at the end of the day, if you're not, you're going to be unhappy because you're not. You're living a split life.
A wonderful example, a great example of that was a couple of years ago, before COVID. I started having a little dalliance with this guy, and he was a teacher from the town that I was from, and he worked in a similar school, special needs school, and in a regular primary school. And his goal was to become a principal of a school, right? Now, he was a year younger than me, and nobody knew that he was gay. He had a pretend girlfriend, because he was in the same environment that I would have been in if, once that principal didn't let me back into the school, I had to finish off my qualifications in a regular preschool nursery, which is not where my heart lay. So I was like, I'm out of this, because if I'm going to have to spend my entire life trying to either not be myself or do something else, I'm going to do performing arts. Because that same summer that I got put out of the school, I also did a London performing arts course I got onto this this national drama, and I was like, well, I'm just going to do this, because here's a second passion. And interestingly, then 20 years after that, and I'm living my best life, and everything that I do I love, and and I meet somebody who is like a mirror to the sliding doors moment of what my life would have been. He's got a pretend girlfriend that everyone thinks that, so when he goes into work, he's got a girlfriend.
Does she think she's his girlfriend?
No, he doesn't have a girlfriend.
Oh, so he's made up somebody. He's not got somebody there that he takes along to work functions. That's a friend.
His private life doesn't. So in work, people think that he's this straight man, because he even said, I would never be a principal if people knew that I was gay. So that's
so sad.
So that was 2 years ago. And the thing is, you can tell a mile off that he's gay. He wears skinny tight, checkered trousers and all this type of thing, and he's got that kind of aura, but he doesn't have the confidence, and the culture where he works is not, it's not acceptable. So
no, I can't believe that's still around now.
I have lost out in work just a few years ago, because people were too afraid to have somebody as forward thinking and as comfortable in their own skin. It was kind of we and it was a corporate thing, and it was kind of it's okay to be gay if you don't talk about it or you don't say anything, and I'm like, well, how the hell can I be at this stage, 16 years as a drag queen, no one, and doing television and everything in drag, and then coming into an environment going, whoa, my wife Brenda, it was and people would say, you would write your own ticket in here if you weren't gay. And then I'd have side conversations with people, and they were like, it's just a shit. Don't be the gay version. And I was like, well, people in here aren't the straight version. And someone, because I was working in a media organization, and they were like, don't be a gay presenter. And I was like, I'm not a gay presenter. I happen to be. I'm a presenter. I said, I happen to be gay and a presenter. The straight presenters aren't straight presenters. They're just presenters. So I said to one person who actually said, it's such a shame, literally to me, it is such a shame that, because you actually would do so well in here if you weren't gay. And I said, listen, all I'm going to say to you is replace gay with black. If you said the same conversation with me, do you think that would be acceptable? I know that I'm completely being held back because this organization doesn't support, because you just have to look around at the culture, and there was people who were gay in the organization that weren't out and couldn't come out, and knew that it would go against them if they were out. So the culture wasn't there to support, and I was parachuted in as this all singing, all dancing, and they were like, oh, winning awards. Like
Quite literally.
I won independent awards, and instead of celebrating it, they were like, right, we need to, and at one point they took me off air
We
for
need to
3, yeah,
hide
literally,
you.
like put him in a cupboard. Don't let him have a voice.
Oh my God. Well,
Yeah.
thank God you have voices in other ways, like with
Everything.
podcasting, YouTube, getting on TV, because wow, I just think that's
Yeah.
terrible.
But I mean,
That's a
this
nightmare.
is the
So
reality. Sometimes people see the fun Mardi Gras and and the prides and everyone's all singing, all
yeah,
dancing, and they go, "Why do we need stuff like this?" The reason why we have prides is actually to start getting gay being normalized. Gay's only really been normalized because we've just had things like marriage equality. That's small things that is just normalizing, and like a group of people that it still needs to understand that we may have the right to marry, but in some organizations and in some workplaces we don't have the right to even acknowledge our existence. So be gay, but don't talk about your
that's
partner.
terrible.
Don't come in and say at the weekend you met a fella, but it's okay for Julie to come in and been like, oh my God, I was blocked and I think I had sex with 2 guys. That's all fine because she's
Yeah.
straight. So it's also organizing. And the thing is, a lot of the companies that I work with, I do global work around diversity, inclusion, belonging, and wellness, getting organizations to just understand that language has changed, how we do what we do, and how to allow people just to show up for their very best selves. Because I work a lot around cognitive behaviors, and when you've got diversity, if you've got diversity and everybody thinks the same way, that's not really diversity. That's just the same thinkers in different packages. What you need to really for a thriving business are cognitive diversity and diversity within cultures, because then people are saying, well, I can see this scenario that you're talking about or this product that you're talking about, but here's how it would appeal to the likes of like my organization or the tribe that I belong to, my age group, and you need all different types of age groups and sexes and races and cultures, and so that everyone's coming at it and going, well, here's how we actually package the best product for everyone, not just men in suits going, well, we quite like this. And unfortunately, in some organizations,
How do you deal with how do you deal with that situation? How do you deal with a situation where people basically are chastising you and saying, right, well, we're going to lock you all up, lock your gayness up in a box, and you're going to have to be straight to be acceptable. How do you deal with that? Apart from
yeah.
leave the job? Because I would be like, okay, see you later, I'm leaving. And also, how do you support your kid who's in that situation?
So a lot of it
as well?
is microaggressions and subtle passive aggressive behavior. So you'll just not get promoted, or you'll not be front facing, or your ideas will be turned down, but given to somebody else to promote and share. So it's identifying that first, because sometimes you might not even realize it. You just, every time you go for this job, you don't know why you don't get it, and like you're the best person for the job, and you're not getting it. So it's starting to identify. Then it's looking around. Well, what is the culture in this building? Are there other gay people who are out and talking? And you might know somebody else from the scene and say, like, how do you feel about this? Then you realize that the culture is keeping you down. Nobody ever really walks up. All the side conversations to me were from people who were completely well-wishing, kind of going, it's a shame, don't be a gay presenter. Like they were trying to almost help me. But what they didn't realize that they were saying was, the fact that you're allowing this kind of thing, you need to be an ally and stand up and say, instead of telling me, dim your light, how do we as a straight person go, I don't accept this? So when you are in an environment, and if you're a straight ally, and allyship is people who are there to support everybody, diversity and sexuality and any form of inclusion. So if you're sitting in a room and the likes of me walks out and somebody makes a very derogatory joke or whatever, you can flag that at the time and just go to the person. Listen, I know that you didn't really, 5 years ago that would have been really funny, and I get where you're at and stuff. But in today's culture, that's just not really acceptable. And or if you see that someone is clearly not getting promoted, and then you question why, what is it, and they can't really give an answer. On paper, they are the best. Like they did the best interview, they've got the best qualifications, but you didn't give them the job. So there has to be something. And you're questioning as a straight ally, why is this? And then eventually you're flagging. It's not a gay person going, oh, it's gay rights, because then they're able to go, see.
But can you, if you've applied for a job, can you ask for feedback? And can you
because they've got, you'll never get that.
You never get it.
They'll just be like So it's you have to change the culture rather than the individual settings. So whenever you're talking about changing hearts and minds and culture, I do a lot of work with NSPCC and Childline in Marcus and as Portia, because they want children to see that diversity exists. So when you're changing hearts and minds from a young, if you grow up with something, it's not strange and it's not different. It is what it is. It's the adult. So when you're expanding children's minds, like the Steiner, everyone's equal, everything is fine, and you're free to love whoever you want to love and do whatever. That's what people grow up with, and it doesn't make any form of an issue, which is now why from like 26 down, kids, they don't care. They're fluid sexuality. They're gay one day, they're bisexual another day, they're straight. They're with some. They don't have the same guilt and shame and hang up, which a lot of that came through the church going, you must be this way, and the school system being, you must be this way, and they're kind of going, well, this doesn't really work for us. And which is why in the Dating and Love podcast that I do, we speak to so many experts all around the world. And polyamory is something that is really coming into the zeitgeist, where you've got more than 3 people in a relationship, or like straight couples have open relationships, and they go to they explore different areas of their sexuality, because they don't have the same hang-ups. That it was like, you must get married to one person, have children and a career, and then retire, and then have grandchildren, and that's it. And then nobody ever questioned the status quo. Whereas now, and I think with lockdown, it completely catapulted, progression tenfold, because people are going, I don't need to be in an office, and I'm more valuable to you as a worker than you are to me as an employer, because I can get a job anywhere. So these 0-hour contracts and all this doesn't work for me, and I want to work from home a few days a week, because I can be more productive at home. I can get the same amount of work done in less time, and
if not more. Yeah, exactly. So if not more.
These are my conditions. So that's how you change culture. So whenever it comes to adults, it's setting up new neurological pathways for them to understand that what you're doing and what you're saying and the environment that you're creating isn't suitable in today's modern world. And it might be one old timer or someone with very strong religious beliefs that's going, well, I mean, it says it in the Bible, so I am running this ship like that. This is the way we've always run it. But then the thing is, you alienate so many people, and
but is it though? Is it the way that we've always run it? If you look at the Romans and you look at the Greeks and you look at their artwork, right? Their artwork says they had multiple, they had orgies and stuff like that. Now so I'm not condoning orgies, but
so when I say it's always been minus those eras. So as soon as the education system and religion kind of came into, you must be Christian, and these are the values that are in this book, and you must live by these books. And because the thing is, the homosexuality wasn't in the Bible until 550, and it was actually Emperor Julian's wife put it in, because at that time male on male sex was the higher form of sex, and women were simply designed for breeding. And Emperor Julian's wife was, she had really bad miscarriages, really bad periods, and women suffer so much. And the thing is that in all of these scenarios, gay and women are, the cast down to the second class citizens, because women are subservient always to their men. Eve wasn't the first woman on earth. Here's a real shocker for you. The first woman on earth was Lilith. And Lilith, in the original Bibles, she had her own mind and her own way of thinking. And because she wasn't subservient to Adam, they cast her out into the underworld as a demon. And that's why Eve came from Adam's rib. So she was an exact replica of Adam, which means that because she was an exact replica of Adam, Adam could have had his head turned by the snake to eat from the tree of knowledge. Also, why would it be a sin to have knowledge? So here is this stupid woman who we could have been living in the Garden of Eden, and she has taken knowledge. She has tried to educate herself and know more, and so this woman has destroyed everything.
How narcissistic is that, though? That Adam's gone, oh, well, I can't get on with that woman, so I'm going to dump her and send her down. Yeah. And I'm going to make somebody out of myself.
Yeah.
Wow. No, I didn't know any of that. I'm really agnostic. So I'm like, look, put me in a bin bag and have mushrooms grow out of me, because that's sort of, as long as my body's feeding people. Yeah,
I have to kind of, when people are throwing the Bible at you and quoting this and quoting that, they've only read the King James Bible. Whereas my history and my research goes deeper than that. And I'm going, well, do you know in the original Bibles that they were all doctored and tweaked to suit society at that time. Here's where all these things were added in. The people couldn't read, write, or spell in those days. So the priests and kings and emperors all tweaked stuff. Pay your way into heaven. Priests and nuns and monks didn't have to give themselves to Jesus. So Catholic priests didn't have to be celibate. They used to originally have wives and husbands, but when they died, and they were very wealthy because they were, a lot of their money
church
came from, and when they died, their children inherited their wealth. So then all of a sudden the Catholic Church went, okay, let's make them celibate so their wealth comes to the church. And it's no surprise that the Vatican state, that little tiny mile by mile state, if it was sold, would cancel out world hunger 3 times over. With all the wealth that's on that state.
I know, and they basically sit there and they say, they're all for the good of whatever. But
you look at the AIDS crisis in Africa, because the Africans are very Christian. A lot of them are Christian and believe that the Pope speaks directly to Jesus and God, and whatever he says is gospel, because they're not they haven't had as much education, they haven't been as advanced as much as we have over in these kind of places. So they still believe that narrative that whatever the Pope says, it's directly from God. So when the Pope says, do not use birth control, do not use condoms, that is why the spread of HIV is so rife in Africa, and so many women are dying, men are dying, children are becoming orphans or are born.
No, it's sad.
Children are born with HIV because the Pope will not say a condom, it could help to be eradicated through condoms. Now, the good thing is there's a pill called PrEP that they have come across, which is a bit like the pill for women to stop women getting pregnant. PrEP stops and blocks the spread of HIV. So if you don't have HIV and you take PrEP and you're with somebody that has, you'll not get it. So we're now coming into an era where it's starting to, get it'll eradicate itself with this. But that's what I mean about when you're in, religious organizations that just point blank refuse to actually help mankind. It says it in the Bible, so it must be true.
It's such a frustrating book because so many people actually take it as gospel and quote it and stuff like that. And I just sit there and go, guys, it's a book. It's a good read. Somebody wrote it a long time ago, but like,
Yeah.
you
And it's
know,
been changed so many times.
yeah.
So the King James Bible that everyone reads from today, there was like 64 books taken out of it, because that was kind of the more free will stuff. Reincarnation was in the original Bible until Christianity met Buddhism, and they went, "Oh well, this is too close." So we must let's tweak this. And if you pay your way into heaven, we'll create hell, so that if you pay the church, this will redeem you of your sins, and you'll not go to hell. So hell was actually a place in Bethlehem, and it was this pit where they would put criminals and just burn them alive. So they would just pour petrol on them, and that was deemed to be barbaric, obviously, even back in those days, and that was stopped. But that's actually what you would be sentenced to hell for crimes. So that's how hell ended up in the Bible, as this fiery furnace of a pit.
So no wonder you'd want to pay people. You wouldn't want to be in a pit bloody with petrol poured over you.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't know. So, well, what about if you think your kid is gay? What can you do? Like, what can you do to help them?
So when you've got children, just allow them to explore and come up with decisions themselves in the safest possible way. So if a boy wants to play with Barbies and a girl wants to play with Action Man, or she wants to do football and he wants to do dance, just let them explore it. You don't have to say, no, you have to do this, you have to do that. Just go, here are your options. There's rugby, there's ballet, there is disco dancing, there's the football club. Which out of these, or gymnastics, which out of all of these? Maybe gymnastics, great, try that. So do you want to do the bars? No, I'd love to do the ribbon. Well, there you go, try it. You might, and then they try it and they discover it, and there's no shame attached to anything that they do. Like, I'm a perfect example of, I was allowed to grow up and be my authentic self because nobody ever said that I couldn't. And I've grown up to be very level-headed, and I'm 100% comfortable in my own skin. So just listen to what they're saying. We've got 2 eyes, 2 ears, 1 mouth, and 1 brain. Because watch what your child does, listen to the words that they're saying, percolate everything, and then then tell your children the advice and support that they need. And that's the best way, because then once children feel supported and heard, that's the most important gift that you can give them. And when they come, then they feel that they can ask questions. If you're going, don't be gay, don't be trans, don't be, oh, boys don't do that, girls don't do that, they'll never come to you with questions about that because they're frightened. Whereas if everything's on the table and everything's an open book, then whatever way they want to, whatever discussions that they want to have, they can have them, and they can have them in a safe way, in an environment that they know, no matter what question they ask, or whatever feelings they're feeling, they can be answered in a nice, supportive way. So it's a different way of approaching, but always giving children, you're fine.
Because somebody was saying to me the other day that I don't say things like, are you going to have a girlfriend, or have you got a girlfriend, or have you got a boyfriend, or or whatever, because it's actually already putting a sexuality on that child as such, by assuming that if they're a boy, they'll have a girlfriend, and if they're a girl, they'll have a boyfriend. And so you've already sort of put that pressure in their brain. And I don't know if you ever had that when you were a kid, where somebody would say, are you going to get married, or are you going to have kids, or whatever. But and let's face it, I mean, I've got loads of friends who are gay couples, male gay couples, who have kids. Basically, they've got children. They're fantastic. Their kids are really happy, and so they should be. There's no reason they shouldn't be. In fact, I think sometimes kids from straight parents are actually more unhappy because of the arguments and you're not knowing, like, because there's a male and a female in that relationship, It's like Venus and Mars. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
We don't understand each other. Although that stuff goes on in same-sex couples as well, arguments and all of that malarkey. But yeah, so but somebody was saying don't actually stipulate male or female sort of stereotypes, because you're putting pressure under for that child to go, oh, they think I'm going to get married. They think, oh, being normal or being, and I don't like to use the word normal, but I'm not sure what's the right word at this point. But like being straight or normal is I must be with a girl.
It's following the status quo. So this is as tribal pack, creatures. We always need to stay within the safety of our own pack. So if we do anything, we'll be ostracized from the pack. So it was always straight, heterosexual, and the education system was set up to have workers, not thinkers. So you start in P1, and 1 + 1 is 2. Here's what you do. You go to school, you get an education, you get married to the opposite sex, you get a job, and then you're in that job for a certain period of time, and then you retire, and then you have grandchildren. That's it. Pension, status quo. You're all in that. Buy a house, be in debt, all that type of thing.
Where you're all being controlled by the machine, and that's okay because you're being controlled. So there shouldn't be anarchy.
Yeah. So don't think outside, because if you fit in this mold, you are superior. So then you've got people who maybe are gay that then ended up getting married, to the opposite sex, because they knew that had happened. And then they're in their late 40s, 50s, or 60s, and then coming out because and then their partners are so betrayed because, like, well, does this mean that you didn't really love me to begin with? Or, and then the children have, there's been so much pressure put on people, whereas nowadays people are going, well, actually, I am thinking, I am going outside, and it's all to do with education. The education is power. The more knowledge you have about something, the better your judgment that you can make on whether this works for you or it doesn't work for you. So just allow things to be open. Arm yourself with the information and then make your decisions. That is the best way to do anything.
Yeah. Look, thank you for coming on board and spending time with us and talking to us about your life. No, because it's so fascinating about your journey and what you've actually been through, because it's been like you've gone through the most craziest times in Ireland. But if people wanted to find out about Lady P, or find out about you and what you do, or get in touch with you and talk to you, or do Zoom bingo or whatever, which I think is fantastic, and I'm so pissed off I didn't find out about that in lockdown, being in Melbourne, in the most lockdown city. I could have done with that on a Friday. Is there anywhere that they can contact you, get in touch with you?
Like a lot of my work that I do like Zoom consultations, and my main work is I work as a life strategist and work in high vibrational energy shifts to get people like operating as superhumans. So I help people get from A to B and help them fill in what's the middle part that gets them to where they're at. So the easiest way to get me, I have websites, everything like that, but the easiest way to get me directly is Lady P and Me, which is my Instagram. So it's LADY, the letter P, AND, me, ME. And that goes straight to my phone. People email me and stuff like that there, and it's so much easier because that's just direct, and then I can work it out or ping it across to my assistant or whatever. So if people are wanting to get in contact with me, I do have the UCAN network. So it's the letter U and then equals the equal sign CAN network, and it's .com. The whole thing about the UCAN network is you can do anything that you want. It's you can, we can, I can. You can do anything that you want. Sometimes you need a little bit of extra support or help, and we can do it together. So you can stand on your own 2 feet and say, I can.
That's fantastic. And like the charity stuff you were talking about earlier, are you still involved in all of that? Yeah. What goes on with that?
That's through the UCAN network, and what I'm doing now is Fashion for Fuel. So I'm organising events where people will come and sell clothes that they were going to give away to a charity shop, they then give the cash that they make, because they were going to give the clothes away anyway, to the UCAN network, and then people apply for their electric bills, fuel bills.
Awesome.
And I'm reopening, because I opened up a soup kitchen during lockdown, and I'm reopening the soup kitchen for this winter for families who might need, a little bit of free substance, good.
Well, this is a thing, because the prices are going through the roof in the UK. I know they are. UK and Ireland, I know they definitely are. I mean, it's just insane and crazy. I mean, they are here in Australia, but we're now going into summer. So God help us if it gets hot here, but like we've got aircon and stuff like that. I mean, you poor guys were sweating and sweltering over in the UK and Ireland, because you guys aren't used to the heat like we are.
But it's also that thing of, now that we're the opposite, we're entering winter, that, there are people who just will not have enough money, because our cost of living has gone up so high, but wages haven't. So people who were just getting by are going to be in a scenario the same as when they were on during lockdowns. They were choosing between food and light and electricity. And so I want to, with this, that people can, not have to worry about, food or electric or gas. Will I put the lights on or the heat on? It's kind of like, here is some food, and here is, your electric for the week, and here is some gas,
Yeah. I know, it's worrying in the UK. Hopefully with a new Prime Minister and a blooming new King,
I know.
King Charles III, who knows? Sky's the limit, or it could all fall down, who knows? But we hopefully try and help you to help other people, and, get people to
if anybody does
support
want to donate to the UCAN network, then it's just the ucannetwork.com, and it's the letter U, not the, and then you'll see me. I'm all over the network. Yeah.
I'll put all the blurb down on the podcasty bits, so that's okay. That's cool. Now, look, Marcus, I have one final question for you, and I'll be fascinated with your answer here. If you could recommend a book to my listeners, what book would you recommend and why?
Well, so I have to say, I can't read, and I've never read a book, so I can't.
Oh my God! Of course, you've been saying that all the way along.
But what is very interesting about that is, one of the things that have got me through my entire life was I think it's Susan Jeffers. Hold on, I have it here. Even though I have never read the book, and I can't read it. A book that I have always had, I only ever needed the title, was Susan Jeffers' Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And basically, the long and short of this is, I've never read the book. I don't know what the content is. I don't know what she's talking about. But that title was enough for me, that any time that I was in an environment that was out of my comfort zone, I just would think, feel the fear and do it anyway. I remember the first time I walked into a straight bar and venue, it was double doors, and I was in this lovely black party dress, and I had my hands on the double doors, and I was really nervous because I didn't know how I was going to be received. And I just opened the double doors, and in my head I was like, feel the fear and do it anyway, and I walked in. And there's an amazing second book which actually was made into a mini series which you can get on YouTube, and it's called Out on a Limb by Shirley MacLaine.
Out on a Limb.
Shirley, so there's it's 4 hours, so this entire book has been made into a mini series. And armed with these two books, even though one I only had the title and one I watched the mini series on cassette tape, believe it or not, in that, one of the biggest takeaways from it is there's no such thing as accidents. Everything happens for a reason. People are in your life and things happen. And once you realize that and start rolling with life and going, right, okay, I'm getting on the vibration of
feel the fear and do it anyway. And
So these two books, even though I've never read them, one, if anybody wants to watch the mini series on YouTube, and it's called Shirley MacLaine Out on a Limb, and she was a real pioneer to this way of thinking. Before her book, I'm Over All That. I've also heard her read her own autobiography called I'm Over All That. And she goes into all of her life and spirituality and all that, and being the pioneer. And it's funny because I remember an interview that she was doing with Oprah, and Oprah says to her, do you now not feel kind of like vindicated that, you know, you were right and now everyone's just catching up? She goes, I don't care that I was right or wrong. She goes, I was just I was helping people, giving them the tools. So I'm not sitting here going, haha, I'm right. I'm going, well, now you've caught up. So that,
yeah, no, fair enough.
So that's my top recommendations.
Wow, brilliant. Fantastic. Thanks, Marcus. Well, look, you're in the UK and it's only morning where you are. It's evening here where I am.
I've had my lovely coffee that I've had while I was chatting to you, because I'm a great believer. Some of my strategies in life are a great morning routine and a great breakfast routine. Generally, I don't start my working day until 11:11. My assistant knows not to book anything in, but because obviously, but there's always, you know, there's always rules to everything. And I kind of thought, well, you know, this works great. I'm up at this time anyway, and I'm having my coffee. I normally sit in my bay window and watch the world go by and drink my coffee, but instead I've spent my time with you, which has been great.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Look, thank you. I know you're busy. There's loads of things that you're doing, as we've heard just now. So like, look, thank you for spending the time with us. It's so brilliant. And I can't wait to be on your podcast.
That'll be me too. So you were in touch with Jean, weren't you? Was it Miss Jean Gigi, who I do the podcast with? So also the Dating and Love podcast is great fun because, as you know, I'm never short of anything to say, as you can hear.
No.
I am the king of the overshare. So sometimes I overshare a wee bit too much, but I don't care.
No, that's okay.
I'm just, you know, I'm human, so's the rest.
You're who you are.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
No,
so
me too. Look, yeah, I'm the queen of the overshare as well. So that's okay. That's cool. There's some things on here that I've talked about that I go, oh, I'm not sure my mum and dad wanted to know that. But anyway, never mind. It's all good. And, you know, it's like whatever. But look, I'm going to let you get on with your day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I'll speak to you soon.
Well, ciao, ciao.
Thanks for listening. If you've enjoyed this podcast and you would like to hear more, please hit subscribe wherever you like to hear podcasts. If you would like to support us further, share this episode with your friends and family. And finally, drop us a review on iTunes, as I'd love to hear your thoughts, comments and ideas. It all helps me to understand and produce awesome content you want to hear just like this. If you want to check out our past episodes, write to us, appear on the podcast, or for links, resources and show notes, go to our website www.strongsingleandhuman.com. We are also on all the usual social media platforms, Insta, Facey and Twitter. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I hope to see you back here again soon. Be kind to yourself and remember, no one is perfect. We're all just putting one foot in front of the other and doing our best. I'm Claire Martin, and you've been listening to the Strong, Single and Human podcast.